Hi everybody, it's Bobby Ogilvy, Project Manager and Professional Coach. I want to take a second to make a video today to talk about self-organizing teams and organizations, what that might look like, and particularly the leadership and implications, the cultural implications of that. So in the past year, some of you may have heard of a term called Holacracy. It's another, let's call it management and governance system. And actually the consulting firm that does this out of the US is called Holacracy One. And in the past year also there was a big shift in that. So there's a firm called Zappos. They had 6,000 people at the time. They fully shifted to this new self-organizing way of managing themselves, of governing themselves. And it was contentious, but they lost 15% of their staff. Those staff chose to quit, took a severance package, but it ended up being very effective for Zappos. So why would you want to switch to a self-organizing system? Let's go back to actually what the gaps of kind of our classic ways of approaching organization and management is. So one is there's this authority autonomy issue in that most people in the organization don't have power to execute on their own. They're either boss's authority or their boss's bosses. And it means that one, from a motivational standpoint, there's autonomy issues there. They're not as engaged. But secondly, it also means that the people that are directly working with whatever their task, whatever their function is, aren't empowered to be able to create that change. They need all these layers of permission, right? That's an issue. Secondly, another gap is that our normal way of approaching jobs, job descriptions, job contracts, domains of responsibility is very kind of legalistic in that it's trying to outline scope of, what are you doing or what are you not doing, what are you responsible for or not responsible for. But in practice, it actually doesn't boost performance. Really, just the opposite. I mean, truly, job descriptions are the enemy of performance, both on an individual and a team level, right? So their whole way of approaching HR doesn't and capacity doesn't fit with really much better ways of looking at roles and responsibilities. They're also, and this is the main one when you think about organizations really getting quite big, is that they become so bureaucratic and so process oriented they can't make decisions. It's very hard for them to change and innovate, and in doing so, what that means is that they're slowly dying. They're these big dinosaurs that need lots of resources. They're very administrative and top heavy, very process laden down, and they can't self adjust. They not only can't self adjust, they lose a lot of self awareness. So there's a lot of, particularly as it gets too big, scaling issues that happen with our classic way of approaching organizations. So what does a self-organizing system look like? So one of the things are that in a self-organizing, like a holacracy organization, anyone can self-initiate a change as long as you just consult the people that change is going to impact. You can self-initiate that. So if you think of, let's say, some tech support worker who is supposed to follow some process, right? And they're currently doing A, B, C, D, but they're the frontline person that handles this every day, and they realize it would be better to go A, B, the EF, right? They're able to self-initiate that change. They know it best. Why shouldn't they? Secondly, it's much more collaborative in terms of what roles and responsibilities you're taking on, and it's more about how you can, in a broad sense, deliver value to the company than saying this is in or out of scope for you. And so they actually have, again, we're dealing with Holacracy. They have a piece of software. It's actually freemium now, so you can access what's called Glass Frog, but it helps you kind of organize the roles and responsibilities, who's taken on what role, who's responsible for what function. And that's a great way to approach things. That also, you see elements of that in the classic kind of matrix organizational structure. So it brings some of that out. There's also just a lot more better peer evaluated ways of approaching evaluation and progress in projects and decision making, right? So everyone's kind of a co-owner, which kind of has co-op type elements you may have seen before, but also affects things like compensation. Really, you can make whatever decision you want, but remember that you're responsible to your peers, to your organization about that. So if you want to say give yourself a 20% pay bump, go ahead. But remember, not only do your peers need to approve that, but now the expectation has jumped. Why does this person deserve that pay bump? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. And so when you realize that, as opposed to having to schmooze the right person, or I'm sure we've all seen people in organizations which we're all kind of wondering, how were they promoted to that level? Peter Principle kind of stuff, right? No, your peers are there. You're working with them day in, day out, and they know what you're worth. They know what your performance is like, and so that's all coming back to you. as much as some of this might seem new and that this is stuff emerging in the past few years, I think it really aligns with even classic models of management. So if you think and leadership, so if you think of the Tuckman model of the team stages they go through, forming, storming, norming, performing, right? And the latter stages, the leader manager's job is just about cohesion and relationship management. And in the final stages, it's really fully delegated. They don't even really need the leader manager because the team is so self-organizing, right? So implicit, and that's like a 50-year-old model, right? So that's already been in play. And even in much more recent but very research validated models like transformational leadership, there's an obvious nod to saying, I can't do, you as the leader, you can't do this all yourself. So part of your job is to delegate others and also build capacity, not just build culturally, build trust, which is important and relates to authenticity, but build capacity in others. Your job is actually a kind of talent manager, right? You're trying to build the capacity of others to execute more. So when you take all that together, this notion of a self-organizing organization isn't that radical at all. But I would love to hear some of your thoughts about this. Do you think it could work for your organization? What's neat? What's compelling about it? Do you think it really wouldn't work for some reason? Maybe there are certain, let's say, industrial production heavy situations where it feels like, no, I feel I would need those classic management hierarchies. So I'd love your thoughts on about this whole way of organizing and leading. Thank you.